buyer has to inspect the house at their cost. They have to inspect the septic at their cost, the well at their cost. And if there are issues, it does not necessarily mean it's an automatic renegotiation of the sales price. You may come to some negotiation on some term of it, but it's not an automatic. So you have to think about that. Inspect your physical plant. When was the last time you had your furnace cleaned? Most people have it done every year. But quite frankly, in my business, I can tell you that most people, for some reason, they're not my clients. My clients, they always seem to end up being 3 to 5 years out when they last had the furnace service. I don't know why. I mean, you walk in and they're like, oh yeah, sure, I had that done. Well, can you show me the receipt? Oh geez, that was 2016 when I last did it. Yeah, kind of want to have that done. So look around your house for issues that are coming up. Make sure the major mechanical stuff has been updated, taken care of. That's the important stuff. Understand that if you have a boiler in your house that's 30 years old, any home inspector worth their salt is going to walk in there and say it's reached its life expectancy. Remember, a home inspector's job for the buyer is to inspect that house and determine the good, the bad, the ugly. They'll tell them the good stuff, they'll tell them the bad stuff, and they'll definitely talk about the ugly stuff. And they'll want to make sure they do that because they're protecting their license. That's their job. Their job is to work for that buyer and make sure that they advise the buyer as to what's going on with the property. Prepare and stage. Big, big, big comment. So let's talk about staging for a minute. Yeah, thank you. So I'll give you the example of the house I just listed this summer. Beautiful lake home. Craftsmanship and detail is unbelievable. It's built by a master craftsman. You wouldn't be able to see that craftsmanship though because the seller has so much stuff in the house. And I mean stuff everywhere, including stuff on top of the door jambs, you name it, this lady has it everywhere. Try to get her to put that in boxes and put it in storage. We'll work on that, Alan. Okay. Come back a month later. Didn't change much. Oh no, you should see, look at the storage room. Literally, the storage room is filled with boxes, and the house is still full of stuff. So, these are your personal items. I get that. You have your grandchildren's pictures there. You have that, set of china that you got when you went on a trip 25 years ago. All good stuff, get it. No problem. Pack it in boxes, put it away, and put it in storage. And when you do that, pick an area, take one room in your house if you have to. Make that your storage room. Put it all off to the side, declutter as much as possible. So I go to my father-in-law's house, and when I go in there, I see, he was a Raytheon engineer, design missiles, push the button up, they go, that kind of thing, right? And I go in there, and it's all I see is his magazines everywhere in his house. Every table is covered in magazines, stuff that he's reading. And it's like, Dad, if you want to ever sell this house, it's going to take us a year to declutter this place. You've got to get rid of the stuff. The people want to see the house. They don't want to see your personal items. Okay? So you really want to work on that. And staging the house. If you don't, you don't necessarily understand or realize that your couch that you've had for 30 years in there, though it's comfortable, doesn't necessarily show well in today's society. If you watch any of the shows, they want to see the houses clean, decluttered, fresh, newer stuff, things like that. It may behoove you to talk to a stager and have a stager come in and either work with your existing items, which sometimes it's funny, the folks that hire a stager, they come in and go, wow, I never realized it could look like this. This is kind of nice. I like this. And of course, even in some cases where if you have houses, I'll give you the example of my house is great. I have a 3,500 square foot house. My wife and I love it there. We have a room that I call the ironing board room. And that is strictly because it is a 12 by 14 room with one ironing board in it. That's it. There is no furniture in that room. There is nothing else. We have nothing for it. We don't use it for anything other than it has an ironing board. So a stager would come in and then actually have rented furniture that they would bring in and put in that room, or utilize some of your other things to then put in that room. Rented furniture is one of the things that's really popular, and believe it or not, it's not expensive. and it will make your house sell. So if you have a house that's like that needs freshening up, talk to a stager. Really important. That's it? Questions already? What else can I tell you about real estate? How do we want to handle the questions? Anybody at all, or? Well, we'll start with this young lady. Why not?
Can you give us some information about Massachusetts?
Can I give you information about Massachusetts? Well, keep in mind that most of this is generalized for the nation in New Hampshire. I am not a Massachusetts broker, so I don't have a real good handle on their market. And any good realtor will tell you that they only talk about what they know. They don't try to talk about other markets. So if you wanted information about a particular town or a particular area in Massachusetts, I would refer you to a broker down in Massachusetts to talk with down there. What do we got? Now I'm going to wear glasses. So you guys didn't think that, huh? I told my wife, I said, this is getting to be old news with these glasses. She laughs because we'll go to a restaurant now and be like, do you have my reading glasses? And she's like, what do you mean? I said, you did put an extra pair in your pocketbook, right? So everywhere we go now, she laughs throughout the house. I have reading glasses everywhere in the house. She says, you must have more than Foster Grant at this point. What are the primary questions you should ask a realtor you are hiring? Great questions. First and foremost, do they know their marketplace? Do they know their area? What kind of marketing does their team do? You'll hear a lot about teams nowadays. There's a lot of real estate teams out there. What kind of marketing do they do? If you have an agent that raises their hand and says, I'll put you in the MLS, at that point you say, what else are you going to do for me? Putting it in the MLS is the old school of doing things. We don't do that just anymore. Do they do video tours? I'll touch on video tours real quick. It's a great tool. I do them with my company, and it's a whole special process. We have a special camera that we do with the video tours, but be advised, they show everything in your house. And I mean everything. If you have lint on something, it will show the lint. It's that crisp a picture. And it will show everything. So if you don't want that, if you're really private or you have things like that that you don't want seen by everybody, you have to question whether or not you want to do the video tour. Ask them if they do drone tours, if they do drone shots of the house. In some cases that's not going to matter based on where you're at, but in some cases it does matter. You know, sometimes it's really cool to see that drone shot and see it pan over the house and see that the backyard is 5 acres of land that's all manicured and nicely done. Now keep in mind, the component of this is your audience is looking for this stuff. That's what they look for. When they're online and they're on Realtor.com, Zillow, Trulia, any one of the aggregators, or aggravators as I like to call them, any one of those companies, that's what they're looking for, the bells, the whistles, the pictures. Professional photography. Do they take professional photography? Do they know how to take photography? In all honesty, if you have a realtor that walks in the door with their camera phone and says, here's my camera right here, I'm ready to go. Put the brakes on, remind them that this is your investment and you're trying to capitalize on it and you want professional photography done. If they don't know how to shoot professionally, they should hire someone to shoot professionally. It's your investment and you want your best foot forward. If you don't put that little picture out there, the best pictures forward, as soon as you hit send, it goes everywhere with the worst pictures you have. Remember that. So you want your best pictures first. 20 to 30% of residents are from Durham. All the homes will be on the market at once. What advice do you have? Well, I happen to be opening up a new office in Durham, by the way. Yeah, I'm going to call my brokerage right now and say, get that paperwork in gear. We need to open up in Durham. So, first and foremost, we sell thousands of homes a year. As far as all being on at once, that's not necessarily the case. Keep in mind, inventory is moving fast. One of the things you may want to consider is capitalizing on the short market now and selling it in the next 6 to 8 months, 6 to 12 months, and then trying to capitalize on the market now instead of waiting until a little bit later. Remember, I talked about maybe selling and renting. Might be an option, might not. You have to think about that. As far as everybody being on at once, I don't see that as being a major issue in this particular case. It's not like everybody's just going to hit the send button and go, oh, we're all in the market today. It takes time, and realtors are going to really work hard at filtering that out there. There's a lot of pent-up demand right now, so keep that in mind. Though you may hit the market at once, you have a lot of pent-up demand out there. And I guess it goes back to also, if you want to set yourself apart from everybody else, make sure you hire the broker that does the job. Make sure they set you apart from everybody else in the marketplace. Your house will already be sold, and you won't be worrying about everybody else that's coming on the market at the same time. So, what else do we have? These were all the same question on that?
Oh, no, those are all separate questions.
Oh, they're all separate? Oh, Matt. What if you want to rent your house or condo? What incentives come to mind to attract a renter? First and foremost, I guess what I would say is hire a professional company to manage the rental. You don't want the headache. You don't want the responsibilities of it. If you are looking to sell that asset, that house, and I always call them assets. To me, it's a product. To you, it's a home. It's where you live. To me, it's a product. It's what you sell. It's a commodity. You want to take that and you want to make sure that if you're going to rent it, that you're prepared for the outcome on the other end. Meaning that they will not take care of the property the way you have for the last 40 years. So they will live in the house, they won't necessarily abuse it, but they won't take care of it, and when you get done with it, you're going to have to go back in and spend more money to fix that asset afterwards. So it may not behoove you to rent that property out. You have to think about that. We own a lot, extra lot next to our home. Should we sell this now or wait and sell then both at the same time? Okay, so the extra lot can be of very big value if it gives great privacy to the existing house. There is a financing component that becomes problematic in the sense that banks don't like to give money on a separate lot. They consider that separate unless it's already been merged with the main property. You could sell it now. Their land values are extremely low, even in this market, they're extremely low right now. So it may not be the best time to sell a piece of land. Remember, building costs are very high, so the buyers are not paying high dollar for lots. I personally bought a lot for $115,000, put $35,000 into it for a driveway, so I'm into it for $1.50. Held it for 10 years, taxes of $2,000 a year, you do the math. Sold it last year for $75,000. Now I'm in the business, and that was a bad move. Needless to say, I didn't really want to have that conversation with my wife. So she went out and bought a new BMW. Go figure. I think that was payback. How do you visualize the housing market in late 2019, early 2020 due to higher interest rates and possible recession? Okay, so we are talking about possibly 2 more years of this great market. That's what all the gurus are telling us at national level. At state level, that's what we're seeing. We're seeing the prices holding. We're seeing possibly another couple of years. I always qualify this by saying good, bad, or indifferent. Doesn't matter what your political affiliation is. Whatever happens in Washington will affect what we do here. So we don't ever know what's going to go on down there. And I'll tell you, I met with the politicians in May, and Congress and senators, that's all they talked about was, we can't focus on work because we never know one day to the next what's going to crop up as the new problem we have to deal with. So, as far as the market goes, I think you're going to see a sustainability of that. I don't know about a possible recession at this point. The market indicators are not there for a recession, but we will see a market correction in pricing based on the simple fact that interest rates will go up and affordability will change. I love this one. Is it better to price a little high knowing that buyers like to make an offer? Price the property where it should be for the market, and you'll do fine. When you price a property high, it's called chasing the market. And typically what happens is, 6 months, a year later, you're calling the broker going, hey, how come my house hasn't sold? Well, remember that conversation I had with you when I said price it at $599, you wanted to go $699? I'm closing that on Friday, by the way. Same conversation. Oh, we think our property is waterfront, $699 all day long. Yeah, you know, the numbers aren't there. I think $599 is the price. This last summer we sat there at $699. How come no showings? I don't know, $699 is a lot of money. People aren't stupid. I mean, they know. They're not going to offer you 100 grand less. Yeah, well, I think this is the right price. This spring comes around. Where do you think we ought to be? $599. All right, let's go on to $599. 4 offers, okay? We've got 4 offers on the property, under contract at $575, closing on Friday. Amazing how that worked. Listen to your broker. Go with the price they recommend. Don't try pricing it high just to adjust for an offer. Truly, if your property is priced right and it's very desirable, make it a couple of people bidding on it. You may get more than the money. Great question. Can the seller specify or select the appraiser? Can the seller have the appraisal complete for the bank to use? No and no. First and foremost, the Dodd-Frank Act changed the way we select appraisers now. They use a management company, okay? And what they do is the bank calls the management company. By the way, appraisals went up about $150 all because of this, but that's all right. They call the management company. The management company then assigns an appraiser to the property for that appraisal. The appraiser comes out. The appraiser cannot talk with the bank. The appraiser cannot talk with the borrower. And that appraiser does their job separately and wholly of the bank. The bank requires, an underwriter requires a correction or a change on the appraisal. They go back to the management company. The management company goes back to the appraiser and requests the change. The purpose of that is to avoid selecting the appraiser. So I'll give you a quick example of that. I bought a commercial building back in 2006. I wanted this building in the worst way. I called my lender and I said, hey, I want to buy this building. It's $210,000. She was, great. How do you want to buy it? I said, no money down. She was, all right. What do you mean no money down? I said, no money down. Do a stated income loan and make it happen. Fine. Well, I'll have to do a first and a second mortgage. We'll get that done. Okay, great. Appraiser calls me up. Hey, Alan, we've got a problem. What's the matter? Well, appraisal's not coming in. You're about $5 grand shy. I can't, that appraisal's going to be shy. I said, oh, no. You missed it. This comp over here, this is a property. They did it as residential. It's really commercial. Go with this one. Oh, okay, yeah, great. No problem. We got it then. Value's in. What was wrong with that picture? The appraiser called me, the buyer, and said, hey, by the way, your number's not coming in. What can you do to help me out to make this number come in? We had a conversation, and next thing you know, the number's coming in. So no, they can't select it. That's why they did that, because there was too much of that going on. And again, the appraisal's typically only good for 3 months anyway. So if you have the property appraised, if you do it as a seller, the only reason I would recommend it as a seller is you don't believe your agent, and that happens, not a problem. Go get an independent appraisal. Spend $500 and have an independent appraisal done. Then you have an independent appraiser's opinion of value on the property. Now they're using the same information, but remember the agent has a couple of different motives. They want the listing, and they want to keep pumping the price a little higher if they can. So they're going to come in a little higher, and they're going to maybe work this listing a little differently because they want to get that listing. Remember, that new agent we talked about that comes in and says, yes, I'll give you $10,000 more because I think that's what we should do. Or I love the one when the seller says, well, I know you recommended $550, Alan, but I really want to go with $600. Okay, why would we do that? Well, because I want $600. That's great, except that's not going to work. Again, people are educated today. They know the values. You need to pay attention. Oh boy. The dreaded realtor fees. Okay, I'm going to qualify this by saying it is an antitrust violation to talk about what realtors charge, what any company charges. So to be qualified on that is an antitrust violation. If I talk about what my company charges, perfectly acceptable. I am not allowed to talk what other companies charge for their fees. I'm not allowed to talk about what their split in the MLS may be. Okay? There is no defined answer for that. So, under realtor fees, you really have to decide if you're going to get a value for your money. I will tell you on a residential property on my company, this is strictly my company owned, I typically do a residential property at 6%, and if it's a property that's either a waterfront or excess of 500,000, I'll go to 5%. When people say, is that negotiable? I say, I gave you 6%. What part of that didn't you understand? Oh, what do you mean? That's kind of high. Well, no, it isn't, because you're paying for me. If you want to pay for someone else, you're welcome to do that. But I value my time and my effort and my expertise. So therefore, anyone watch Selling New York and Selling LA? Anyone? Oh, it's a great show. Frederick is unbelievable. He calls himself Mr. 6%. He's funny as hell. And the guy, I'm not going to do the kick though, that's just not me. But that's part of it. So fees are really what each individual brokerage sells. There are fee-for-service brokerages, and some of those fee-for-service say, hey, we'll put you in the MLS, we'll charge you a flat fee of X dollars, and that's all you get. And by the way, that is all you get. You become the negotiator, you become the house stager, you become the house shower. They don't do anything else other than put you in the multiple listing service. It's not necessarily your best interest. Now, maybe you feel that it is. Maybe you feel that you don't necessarily need full service brokerage. If you want discount brokerage, that may be the way you choose to go. I never recommend it. I always believe in full service brokerage. I recently sold a house down in Florida when I bought a new one. I bought my new house. My broker, she said to me, she goes, fees 10%. I said, really? And she goes, Alan, I'm not negotiating with you on this. I said, fair enough, Lisa, done deal. I said, but here's the deal. I want you to sell it in under a month, and I want you to get me full price. Well, don't you know, she came back to me in 3 weeks with a full price offer. She earned her commission every nickel. Staging costs, that really depends on the stager. I have seen them range anywhere between $2,500 and $5,000 for a 3-month period. They'll usually have a consultation fee. They'll come in with a consultation fee. It's usually a couple $100, maybe $250.
Can't hear you.
Oh, I'm sorry. Can't hear me? Did it turn off?
Yeah.
Can you hear that? No? Hello? Can you hear that? Can you hear that?
Yes.
Yeah, you can, this isn't working. All right, so staging costs. Staging costs are typically $2,500 to $5,000 for roughly a 3-month period. You would want to talk with a stager to see exactly what they're offering for those fees. There is a consultation fee. They almost all charge that. It's typically around $250 for a consultation fee. They will come out, they will consult with you. Quite frankly, some sellers only need a consultation. Some sellers just need to have that consultation, be told what would work for their house, and then they work with their broker to get that staging done. Selling fees. So on a selling side, remember in New Hampshire, live free or die, we have no taxes. Well, that's not totally true. Okay? We do have a real estate transfer tax, which is typically $7.50 per thousand. And on the seller side, same thing on the buyer side, and you have to be aware of that. You know, it gets a lot of people. You know, they get to the closing paperwork, and they go, wait a minute, what's that tax? Oh, we have a tax in New Hampshire called the transfer tax. Most states have one, so that is a big component you need to be aware of. As far as selling fees go, it's not like other states. You're not required to pay for their inspections. You're not required to pay for other fees unless they ask for them and you agree to it. More importantly is, though, you will have a deed preparation fee. That deed preparation fee typically will not exceed $250. So it's a pretty straightforward fee. If you're working with a title company and they say, would you like us to prepare the deed? The answer should be yes. It's not a complicated process. They prepare the deed for you, they help you with the transaction, and you get to the finish line. If you have a particularly complicated property, or you have a complicated title history, or a trust or something that's very unique or weird, then you may want to hire your own attorney for that. But I will tell you, often I will have a client say to me, do I need to have legal representation at the closing? No. I'm not anti-lawyer, I'm merely saying that you don't necessarily need to have a lawyer and pay them $300 an hour in addition to your listing fee to show up at the closing table to review closing documents that are very straightforward. Now, I sat with one of my clients yesterday for 2.5 hours and executed her documents with her and went over everything with her. That title company earns every penny of what they get. Because I sat there for 2.5 hours and just shook my head and go, why did I do this? I should have let the title person come over and do this for her, but she's a great client. So that's it on selling fees there. How are we doing on time? How much time do we have? Oh, awesome. When selling a house, is it generally wiser to spend, let's say, $20,000 to $30,000 in repairs and updating, or sell as is? In other words, can you flip your house and make a greater profit at the sale? Great question, really good question. So I am a very strong advocate of don't spend your money. The buyer is going to change things on a regular basis when they come in. They may have loved your house, but they didn't like the kitchen, or they didn't like something else. And they're going to change things on their own. Now, if you walked in and you had a house that's a beautiful home and you still have the 1950s kitchen cabinet with the metal cabinet still in there, we still see some of those out there, believe it or not. You may want to look into doing one of those kitchen remodels that they do on TV for under $10,000 and have a kitchen remodel done. Doesn't mean that you're going to pay the high end and put in a $50,000 kitchen, but you'll get more return on a kitchen and you'll get more return on a bathroom. So if they're extremely dated, you may want to have that looked at and decide whether that's worth it. I will tell you that someone like Bath Fitters, I'm not a fan. Okay? So if you see them coming, run. Okay? They will sell you an $8,000 bathroom makeover that's just not worth the money. You can get it done for a lot cheaper. People don't think of that. You talk about something as simple as a vanity. You can go to Home Depot, buy a regular vanity with a nice marble top for probably under $300. That'll change the look of your bathroom like you wouldn't believe. And it's simple, cheap money to make it more appealing. So I'm not a big advocate of spending money unless it's something mechanically wrong with the house that needs to be fixed. If you have a roof that's bad, that's a component of the house that needs to be fixed. So you need to take that into consideration. Because that roof is going to come up in the home inspection and you're going to have to fix it. They're not going to accept it the way it is. House I'm just put under contract, this is a great example. So we're looking at the deck and going, the deck is kind of bowed in the middle, it doesn't make any sense. Well, it made sense because they only put the footings down 2 feet deep. Well, anybody who lives in New England knows you have to go down 4 feet on your footings. You can't go down 2 feet on your footings. So they just spent $8,000 replacing all the footings on the deck and the porch because they didn't do it right from the beginning. And ironically, when I called the seller and said, here's the problem with the home inspection, I took the initiative, by the way, to get you some quotes and so forth and help you along the process, and here's what it's going to cost to get this fixed. She goes, yeah, I kind of expected that. When we dug those footings, there was water in the ground, so we didn't go down too deep. So they saved time back then, and it cost them $8,000 in repairs now. Had they done it right from the beginning, it would have been a different story. So again, I don't necessarily recommend putting a lot of money into houses. I will tell you that if painting can be a big deal, if you have those lovely colors that you love, and my wife loves rose, so when you walk in my house, she has walls that are all rose colored, and it's all wonderful. And I've already told her when we go to sell, we're moving out of the house, we're having it fixed and painted, and then we're having it staged, and you're not moving back in. Simple as that. Because she has these colors that I'm looking at going, well, I know you like that green color in the master bedroom, but that's not for everybody. And I'm in the business, so I see it every day, and I can tell you that that's not what people go for. Now, we talked about appraisals. What's the difference between an inspection and an appraisal? Very good question. So an inspection is exactly that. It's a home inspector hired by the buyer to inspect the physical plant of the house and determine if there are any deficiencies in the house. An appraiser looks at the value of the property and compares the value against other comparable sales within the marketplace. They don't necessarily look at the condition of the house Although, depending on your buyer, they may. If you have a buyer that comes in with an FHA loan, but any, what we call alphabet soup loans, any of the government loans, FHA, VA, any of the alphabet soup loans from the federal government, they will require the appraisers to do a quasi-inspection of the property when they're there. So they'll be checking electrical to make sure it's grounded properly. They'll take pictures of the fuse box, and if you have fuses, by the way, that would be one I would tell you to get changed over. If you have fuses in your house still, call your electrician now and get them working on it if you're going to sell, because that will come up. It is almost impossible. I think there's one carrier now that will cover insurance-wise fuses in the house. A lot of the older homes, they still have active knob and tube wiring. Again, get the electrician in, spend the money now, get that dealt with up front. It's not worth it to wait till later. Talk about selling your house on your own. Shame on you. You're talking to a realtor here. There are those who are savvy enough to do that. There are those who think that they will save money. They will not. They typically will sell for less than fair market value. They will typically cost themselves money in the end. They don't have as much exposure to the marketplace. Yes, there is exposure if you take your home, and I'll be the first to tell you, stick it out there on Zillow and sell it. We hate Zillow. I'm a realtor. I hate Zillow. Yes, I hate Zillow. That's why we call them aggravators. They're typically aggregator companies which compile data that we supply them, and then they sell it back to us. So that's why I don't really like that. But selling your house on your own, if you are savvy enough and you want to deal with it, you certainly, it can happen. I will tell you that my experience is very much so that most sellers that have sold on their own make plenty of mistakes. I had a great example that just came up. So a lot in my neighborhood, I live in a place called Sunset Heights. We overlook Newfound Lake, big beautiful subdivision. And the person that was there, we've been after them for years trying to get them to sell the lot. They wouldn't sell. The lot sits down in a hole. It's going to require about 100 grand in site work anyway, just to get up to a viewpoint. And then they still won't have a great view in that particular spot. So they sold the lot on their own. These poor buyers paid $80,000 for this lot, not fully understanding the process of what it was going to take to build on this lot. But here's the kicker, and this is beautiful. So they recorded the deed for the sale. They didn't use a title company. They didn't bother to talk to anybody, not even attorneys. The seller took their old deed, made a new back signature page, and then recorded that deed for the new buyer. One slight problem. They never bothered to change the grantor or grantee on the front part of the deed, so they deeded the property back to themselves after the buyer gave them $80,000. Now the buyer has a legal title issue. And oh, by the way, because they didn't use a title company, they didn't get title insurance. So now they technically have given